I flew home early from the cross-border acquisition, hoping to surprise my husband Julian and our twin boys. Instead, I caught them through the window of a hot pot bistro, sharing a cozy dinner with his first love, Chloe. The boys were calling her little mom, and Julian, usually a germaphobe, was peeling shrimp for her, gently dabbing chili oil from the corner of her mouth. I snapped a picture with icy calm, then turned to leave. My phone buzzed with an anonymous text. Chloe is the woman Julian really wanted to marry. If you want the truth, Bayview room 8033, tomorrow 8 p.m. That night Julian came home to find me on the couch reviewing contracts. His first reaction was a frown. "What are you doing back early?" His tone was indifferent, like he was addressing a random subordinate. "Didn't you say the acquisition would take another 3 months? You couldn't call first?" When I looked up, the burgundy tie he wore stabbed at my eyes. This man who used to dress only in black, white, or gray had finally learned to coordinate with the woman he loved. I swallowed the bitterness, gripped my fountain pen, and kept my face smooth. The project wrapped ahead of schedule. The words had barely left my mouth when the twins burst in, clothes soaked, leaving 2 puddles on the floor. The moment they saw me, their smiles vanished. I didn't notice the shift, I only frowned. "Playing with water in autumn? Forgot how miserable you were when you ran fevers last time?" "Julian, were you even watching them?" Ryan wrinkled his nose. "Auntie Chloe says kids need to touch nature." Owen nodded furiously. "Yeah. Mom's so annoying, she only nags. Auntie Chloe never yells." Their mention of Chloe made my expression falter. Seeing it, Julian barked, "Speak to your mother properly. Apologize now." Trying to ease the tension, I reached for Ryan. "Come, let's get you cleaned up before you catch cold." He jerked back, knocking the document folder off the coffee table. The way they recoiled stole my breath. Before I could speak, Ryan snatched my project presentation and ripped it in half. "Stop pretending, you evil woman. You don't love us, you only love your stupid work. Auntie Chloe plays with us, why did you come back? When you're here we never see Auntie Chloe." Shreds fluttered to the floor like the pieces of my composure. I forced down my rage, about to respond, when Julian pulled both boys behind him, irritation thick in his voice. "You vanish for half a year and start scolding the minute you return. Fun, isn't it?" Our eyes locked. His were distant, as though I were a stranger. For 5 years, except in bed, he'd looked at me like this, as if I were decorative furniture. I stared right back. "And you? How many secret outings have you had with them? Happy with Chloe?" His gaze flickered, but he didn't deny it. "She's just helping with the kids." While the white moonlight stayed hidden, I could lie to myself. But I knew too well how much he adored her. He never used to touch spicy food, yet his card statements showed 8 hot pot dinners in the past 6 months. Only with Chloe would he unconsciously compromise. With me, even a minor quarrel had to be fought to the end. "We don't need her help." I knelt to gather the papers. "Julian, have you forgotten who stayed up 3 nights to raise capital when Sterling's cash chain snapped? Who took the flak for you in every board meeting?" His face darkened. "What are you implying?" "I'm saying we agreed long ago. I'd handle the outside, you'd handle the home." I emphasized each word. "Without me, your abandoned Sterling Tech Park would have sunk the group." Julian shot to his feet, the teacup flew off the table and smashed. "Scarlett. Finally telling me what you really think. In your eyes I'm a parasite living off his wife." Porcelain shards burst across the floor, hot tea splashed and scalded my ankle. I barely felt it, I was studying his furious face. So he could lose control, just never for me. "Daddy, don't be mad." Ryan hugged his leg and screamed at me, "Go away. We don't want a mom like you." Owen copied his brother, pelting me with paper scraps. "Auntie Chloe's 100 times sweeter. Don't yell at Daddy." I surveyed the chaos and suddenly laughed. "Fine. Perfect." I straightened slowly. "Julian, let's get divorced." The air froze. He stared, stunned. "You're insane. You'd divorce me over a childish tantrum?" "Childish or not, we both know the truth." His eyes flicked again, but the mask slid back. "Scarlett, what more do you want? You own the company, you have the power, I've given you every freedom." "Freedom?" My voice shook. "Freedom to watch you and Chloe play happy family?" His face was stone. "You're too strong, I need a gentle woman to balance my life." "Is that so wrong?" He sounded perfectly reasonable. How many bottles are in the wine fridge? How many winter coats have you bought Ryan and Owen? Do you even know how many times they were sick this year? I frowned, then smiled coldly. Julian, am I suddenly different? I told you before we married, I can never be a flawless housewife. Back then his love at first sight happened while he listened to my lecture when I was barely 20 and already steering billion-dollar projects, a workaholic legend. He still pursued me relentlessly, waiting downstairs until dawn while I worked overtime. Even after learning about Chloe, I never doubted him, until reality slapped me awake. The one Julian loves most is Chloe. Chloe, who bakes sugar cookies, arranges peonies, speaks in a whisper. Unlike me, who can't even braid the boy's hair without pulling. Yet now he proclaims, Chloe and I are ancient history, why dwell on it? I let out a soft, humorless laugh. Julian, whether Chloe is your past continuous or your future perfect, I don't care. Right now I simply think this disappointing marriage of ours deserves its curtain call. Julian tugged at his tie, exhaustion in every line. I don't get why every homecoming turns into a fight. Neither did I. How had our perfect on-paper union unraveled? The argument led nowhere, so I retreated to the small garden. If my husband was a lost cause, perhaps the sons I bore could still be salvaged. I phoned my assistant to book elite academies for Ryan and Owen. The payment success chime had just sounded when I heard a click. The glass door locked from inside. The boys' voices drifted through, smug, Daddy doesn't want to see you, and we hate you, stay out there and think about it. They pressed their faces to the pane, sticking out tongues. The night wind cut colder. I pulled my thin blazer tight. 10 years ago I'd hemorrhaged giving birth to them. The doctors said I could never have another child. Julian had sworn, eyes red, that 2 treasures were enough. I'd cheated death, walked away from a surefire mega deal, for 2 ungrateful little wolves. Emery, how many more sessions for the young masters? 1 semester runs $180,000. No need. The moment that single syllable left my fingers, every muscle in my body unclenched. Maybe the marriage had already died half a year ago. On the morning I watched Julian walk Ryan and Owen straight into Chloe's waiting arms. The night before, I'd agreed to meet the anonymous texter. By dawn I was burning with fever, but I went anyway. Julian blocked me at the stairs. You're finally home, won't you at least drive the boys to school? It was just a prank. You're overreacting. Your fever was an accident. I pulled a slow, mocking smile. Accident is your favorite word. Chloe crashing our life, accident. The boys freezing me out, accident. Stack enough accidents and you get fate. I brushed past him and headed for the garage. At the Bayview suite I found a silhouette already waiting. I turned, Nathan, the man who'd vanished on me years ago. After 2 polite sentences he handed me a frame. 20-year-old Julian kissing Chloe under cherry blossoms, desire in his eyes I'd never once been shown. Beneath the photo lay a medical file. Scarlett, if you want out, this gets you out clean. I laughed softly. That sure we're doomed? You and he were never on the same road. Bitterness cracked his voice. The Sterlings cooked the whole marriage up. They needed your brain to steady Julian's throne, so they had him chase you. The twins? Collateral to chain you here. My finger traced the lab curves. The C-section scar across my belly throbbed, but the ache in my chest outweighed it tenfold. I'd known he didn't love me enough. I hadn't known I might simply be a tool. Why tell me this? Nathan clasped my hand. Because I still love you. He'd left back then so I wouldn't watch his family's company crash. Julian had slipped in while the door was gaping. Now he was back, successful, and wanted what he'd lost. I thanked him and left. The second I reached my car I told my assistant to draft the divorce decree. News streaked to both families before I even pulled into my driveway. Inside, the Sterlings stood like granite monuments, forcing Julian to kneel. Scarlett, whatever Julian did, we'll punish him for you, Eleanor pleaded. Please, don't rush into divorce. At the word divorce the twins' eyes lit up. Yes. We'll get a new mom, right, Dad? Marry Aunt Chloe, her lullabies are 100 times better. The name Chloe snapped Eleanor's control. She slapped Julian hard. Casey. I warned you that gold digger is never setting foot in this family. I gave a soft laugh. Mom, you're mistaken. I set my purse down and crouched beside Julian, meeting his bloodshot eyes. Chloe isn't useless. She kept your heir pretending devotion for 10 years and turned my own sons against me. I can't compete with that. Julian's pupils shrank, his lips trembling. Charles barked, "We'll cut Chloe off this instant." I raised a hand and placed the folder on the coffee table. "No need. I've delivered every merger, every board vote, every sterling asset you wanted. Let's part while we can still smile." But the Vances opposed it too. My mother rang to lecture, "No matter how brilliant your career is, a failed marriage defines you." Didn't I crave the perfect marriage? Who could taste the bile I swallowed? The Sterlings treated me like a corporate firewall, the Vances treated me like a trophy junction. "Everything I built, does it count for nothing?" I screamed into the phone. You wanted profit, you wanted prestige, I handed both over. It was Julian who cashed in my loyalty. He hunted me down for one more talk. "Scarlett, I'll transfer another 8%, please reconsider." He yanked my car door, all Playboy polish gone. "I'll ghost Chloe starting today. Don't orphan the boys." I drew a slow breath. "Keep the kids, consider them my gift to you and Chloe. You've already spoiled them beyond repair." Shock flooded his face. 10 years, and you just toss us away? What would you call it?" I met his gaze, disappointment cold and steady. I thought at least some of it was real. But if our beginning was a calculation, how did the word love not choke you every time? "I'm exhausted, Julian. I'm done cleaning your messes, done with this whole circus." No matter the continent I was on, every school notice, every playground fight landed in my lap. Even parent-teacher forms waited for my signature. Julian's hobbies were worse: street racing, bar brawls, drunken heroics. I turned the key. "Last month you totaled a guardrail before the board meeting. I flew to Macau at 2 a.m. to bury it." A sour chuckle escaped me. I married a husband, not adopted an overgrown frat boy. Back at Vance Cross I began the exit briefing. The Sterlings retaliated with the projects I'd raised from dust. "The chairman says if you insist on divorce, every contract is void." I stared, then dropped the whole stack into the trash. So be it. Scarlett doesn't negotiate with a gun to her head. What stunned me was how many Sterling executives asked to follow me out. "Emery, your vision is our religion. We've learned what real war feels like under you." My fingers tightened around my fountain pen. Those ventures were my flesh and blood. The Sterlings thought they could blackmail me with paper. They forgot human loyalty can't be shredded. When word reached Julian, he stormed in, eyes wild at the confetti of dead deals. "You'd torch everything just to get away from me?" "We both know who set the fire," I said, holding out the decree. "Sign it, Julian. Keep a shred of dignity." He hurled the papers to the floor, voice glacial. "As long as I don't sign, you stay my wife. You can't escape." I'd expected that. Thankfully Nathan's ace waited in my briefcase, guaranteeing the final word. The next second, her pupils shrank and her face went bloodless. "Julian, whether this document ends up in Chloe's hands is entirely up to you. So, are you signing this divorce decree or not?" On the flight to Westbridge, Charles called, panic crackling through the line. "Scarlett, why drag up ancient history? Julian knows he was wrong, you too." "Dad." Julian suddenly snatched the phone. "Scarlett has Chloe's." I hung up. Since the matter was settled, I couldn't be bothered to argue further. That evening I was chairing a video conference. A bank alert flashing across the screen made me frown. Supplemental card ending in 8033 frozen. I kept my eyes on the camera. East Coast Division needs to cut another 12% from the budget. When the meeting ended, I didn't give the freeze a second thought. Julian's tactics were still childish. Did he think I was some ingenue who'd beg for scraps? The locked funds were the tiniest sliver of my portfolio. Apparently Julian sensed something was off. He tried repeatedly to scout my new company and came away empty-handed. When Jojo dropped by she doubled over laughing. "Poor Julian, after freezing your cards he actually asked me how you found the cash to start a firm, maybe a bank loan?" I told him straight, "You could buy half of Sterling with pocket change. Who needs his measly millions?" Then her grin soured. "Still, those two ungrateful cubs of yours make my blood boil." Only when she nudged me did I open Instagram. Ryan had posted a 9-shot collage, he and Owen clutching cokes, Chloe between them, my Steinway Grand in the background. Caption: "New life begins now. They threw a party to celebrate my exit?" I felt nothing. I simply tapped like. Jojo shrieked, "Are you insane? That White Lotus is about to move into your bed." The next second my phone exploded. I answered on the third ring. Julian's voice was low with fury. You did that on purpose? Nice shots. Chloe's champagne dress really flatters her skin. Glass shattered on his end. Scarlett. He was breathing hard. Can we talk, for the kid's sake? Ryan couldn't sleep the night you left. His tone softened. The boys miss you. Owen kept asking when mom's coming home. He wanted the sympathy card. My coffee cup paused halfway. Then I heard the twins crow at the receiver. Daddy, come drink the toast with our new mommy. Why are you calling that bad woman again? Ice slid through my veins, my nails bit my palm. Congratulations, Mr. Sterling. FYI, the joint account you froze holds $2.3 million, barely enough to cover last month's dues at your racing club. I was still shivering after I hung up. Some father he'd turned out to be. At 3 a.m. my phone danced on the nightstand. I squinted at Julian and hit speaker. Scarlett. Owen's burning up, 103 degrees. Julian sounded ready to crack. Do you know a top specialist? Save our boy. I rolled over. Children's Hospital, Dr. Lee. I saved her number in your phone last year. Glass crashed, Chloe yelped in the background. Julian. Where's the fever syrup? Owen just threw up. I stared at the ceiling, waking up fast. Last winter Ryan had the flu. Julian had rung while I was stepping out of a 10-hour board review, yet I'd video-guided the nanny through tepid sponges and lined up specialists from Sydney. Now they had new mommy to manage. Still, I asked politely, what caused the fever? Dr. Lee needs details. Julian sounded hollow. The kids nearly drowned at the water park. Figures. Chloe means well, but she's clueless, total chaos. I gave a lazy laugh. Your choice, Julian. Remember when you set Chloe's homemade cookies beside the proposal I'd slaved over for 3 hours and said she understood life better? Did you picture this outcome? He lost control. I told her to stay in the shallow end. Who knew? I cut in. Cameras caught Owen choking on pool water and Ryan can't handle cold. You ignored both? What the hell do you want? He shouted over Owen's ragged sobs. He's burning up and you're scoring points? It's your problem, I said, chuckling. We're separated, soon divorced. Figure it out. Clearly the man who'd never run a household was at sea. Jojo told me he and Chloe had a screaming match in the hospital corridor. But what did Chloe do wrong? Julian's being brutal. On the clip, immaculate Chloe clutched the retching child, her face wrecked, while Julian still looked runway ready. Oh, Ryan quit his tutoring program, Jojo added. Her kid shares classes with the twins. I only felt sure I'd made the right call. Easy, Julian's personal funds can't cover the fees anymore. I'd paid nearly every enrichment bill. His 7-figure hobbies already maxed the family allowance. The day I flew back, I spotted Julian the moment I cleared arrivals. Immaculate charcoal suit, not a hair out of place. What are you doing here? I stopped. Who gave you my flight? He reached for my luggage, I stepped aside. I've got it. His smile froze, then reset. How was Europe? Julian, I cut in, we're divorcing. Stop this. A shadow crossed his face. We've only decided, Scarlett. Papers aren't final, Scarlett. A familiar voice behind me, Nathan in a plain white shirt, water bottle in hand. Flight okay? I saw it was delayed 30 minutes. Julian's expression darkened. Nathan? Why are you here? Pickup duty, Nathan said, lifting my bag. Scarlett and I are business partners now, lots to discuss. Oh, please, business at the curb? Julian sneered. Since when were you two an item again? Watch your mouth, Nathan warned. It's legitimate collaboration. Julian's voice rose, drawing stares. Legitimate? Everyone knows you were together at B-school. Rekindling the flame, huh? He looked like he'd just seen the light. No wonder you won't come back to me, you can even ignore your own son. Turns out you already have your next man lined up. My face went cold. Julian, do you have to be that ugly, Daddy? At that moment too small, familiar figures burst through the crowd. Ryan, the older one, took one look at Nathan and curled his lip. Is that Mom's new boyfriend? Unbothered, Nathan crouched to eye level. I heard you guys love soccer. I've got VIP box tickets for next week's match, want to come? Owen's eyes lit up. Really? I want to go. No, you're not. Julian yanked the boy back. He's here to steal your mother. But kids forget fast, and Julian had never taught them right from wrong, so they ignored him. Instead they turned to Nathan, suddenly eager. Were you also pushed away by Aunt Chloe so she could have Mommy? Julian's face turned the color of slate. I couldn't help laughing. Julian, is this what they call reaping what you sow? Just then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, looking even more uncomfortable. He hesitated, then answered. Chloe's sugary voice floated out. Julian, I ordered the boys a birthday cake. When are you coming home? Maybe the kids' loud chorus of Mommy carried through the line. Chloe paused for a second, then added, Is Scarlett there? It is the boy's birthday, she's welcome to join. Pass, thanks. Have fun, the five of you. Julian turned away, face dark, and muttered something to Chloe. I was about to leave when Owen tugged my hem. Mommy, can we stay at your place for a few days? Aunt Chloe's food is awful. I hesitated. It had been a long time since I'd felt needed by them, but I didn't relish the feeling. Sorry, Mommy has back-to-back board meetings tomorrow. The house will be empty, no one to look after you. Disappointment spread across both little faces, yet when I saw it, I felt no ache, only irritation that they still couldn't tell up from down. Old enough to know better, they'd still drop anyone who displeased them for a second. Scarlett. Julian stepped closer, almost pleading. Can we talk alone? Just 10 minutes, nothing to talk about. I stood. Beside me, Nathan rolled my suitcase, and together we headed for the exit. Behind me Julian shouted, Scarlett. You'll regret this. I never looked back. Hungry? Nathan asked. There's a new Cantonese place in the terminal. Just then Ryan came running. Mommy, he blocked my path, panting. I need to tell you something. I motioned Nathan to wait in the car, then looked down at my flushed elder son. What is it? Head lowered, he mumbled, Owen and I want to live with you. Aunt Chloe can't take care of us. Last time I had a fever she gave me the wrong medicine. I didn't say yes. That's something to work out with your dad, but Daddy's scary now, Ryan sniffled. He drinks all day, fights with Aunt Chloe, throws things. I'd known Julian would fall apart, but I wasn't the woman I used to be. I wouldn't soften at the first plea, even if I was their mother. I never expected what happened that night. The doorbell shrilled after midnight. I put down the quarterly report and peered through the peephole. Julian stood there, pajamas charred, eyes bloodshot, a soot-black boy in each arm. Both clutched his legs, bawling. Fire, he rasped. We almost didn't make it out. I yanked the door open. The boys flung themselves at me, shaking. A hole gaped in the back of Owen's pajamas, burns blistered his arm and cheek. Ryan had lost a slipper, dried blood crusted his bare toes. Mommy, I'm scared. I want to sleep with you tonight. Wah, I don't want to go back. I studied their injuries, then tossed my plan of booking them a hotel. Showers first. I herded them toward the bathroom. I'll have someone bring clean clothes. When they emerged, warm milk waited on the table. Where's Chloe? At the question Julian perked up. I told her to go home. I gave a thin smile. Midnight, kids covered in soot and burns, and he'd driven them across town to their ex-wife instead of comforting the woman he lived with. Old wiring, or maybe she left the iron on. I handed him a towel. They're alive, that's what matters. It's not. He sprang up and grabbed my wrist. This past half year has been hell. 3 nannies quit, their grades tanked. If I hadn't come home early tonight they could've. I pulled free. Rehashing it changes nothing. I'll make the beds. It does matter. He blocked my path. Scarlett, please, for their sake, take them for a while. I started to refuse, but he added, I'll come get them soon, okay? Just then Ryan padded out barefoot and tugged my sleeve. Mommy, can we stay forever? Your house feels safe. That other place is so empty, I'm scared. Bed first. I stroked his head. We'll talk tomorrow. I knew the kids were Julian's newest bargaining chips, but their injuries were real. In the end I nodded. The next weeks were oddly calm. Nathan took leave to ferry them to school and back. Weekends meant museums, evenings brought top tutors. Their grades rebounded. I worked nonstop, spending maybe an hour a day with them. Still, Julian dropped by to see the kids every few days. A month later he arrived at dusk with the sterling housekeeper. "Have the boys been troublesome?" he asked, voice honey soft, as if the past had been erased. "The house is ready for you and them," he went on. "Of course, if you're attached, we can all stay here, our things are in the car." He assumed these weeks had worn me down, but I'd grown used to solitude. "Spare me," I cut in. "They can leave with you right now." "What?" He blinked. "But they're thriving here." "Exactly because they are." I met his gaze calmly. "That's why they must go back. I can't keep doing your job for you. Besides, sterling resources beat mine 1,000-fold, if you bother to use them." Later, while packing, Ryan threw his clothes on the floor. "I'm not leaving. I want mommy." Owen flopped down, kicking. "Daddy ignores us, I won't go." I watched without a word. "Remember what you told me? That you wanted Aunt Chloe as your new mom, that I annoyed you." Both boys froze. "You made your choice." I held out their backpacks. "Now go home with Dad." Julian stood in the doorway and watched it all, his eyes unreadable. "Scarlett, you've changed." "Yes, I changed a long time ago." I smiled. "The woman I am now has finally learned to love herself." I watched their car disappear from the cul-de-sac, then turned and walked back inside. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and the hardwood still bore the ghost prints of the children's bare feet. My phone buzzed. "Nathan. The deck for tonight is ready." I typed back, "On my way," then began gathering the scattered toys. Every movement was gentle, as though I might wake something that needed to stay asleep. But I knew, this time I was truly awake. The day we signed the divorce decree, the wind off the harbor felt sharp enough to flay skin. The lawyer slid the stack across the mahogany table. "Rowan, check the asset split clause." I skimmed once, flipped to the last page, and signed. Julian slammed his hand over the paper. "You're walking away from sterling shares?" "I never wanted them." I capped the fountain pen. "Your turn, Julian." His eyes reddened. "Scarlett, is there really no way back for us?" "Julian, remember the medical file. If you back out now, don't blame me when Chloe learns the truth and you lose us both." He slammed the table so hard the pen jumped. "Let her find out, I don't care. I'm more terrified of losing you." I was too tired for his brand of desperation. I stood. "Julian, my company goes public next week. I'm busy." Outside the tower, I inhaled harbor air, my phone lit up. "Nathan. I'm in the cafe across the street." He snapped his laptop shut the instant he saw me. "Done?" "Done." I swirled my cappuccino foam. Easier than I expected. Then, like every time before, he produced a velvet box. I'd been meaning to ask. I pressed the lid closed before it opened. "Nathan, how long have we known each other?" 15 years, 4 months. No hesitation. "That's why you already know." I nudged the ring away. "Right now, the last thing I need is another marriage." His grin turned crooked. "Knew it. Hot newly minted IPO queen, line of suitors around the block." "Stop." I tapped his knuckles. "To future partners, may we get along smashingly." On IPO day the stock popped 40% at the open. After the confetti settled, an unexpected figure blocked me beside my car. Chloe's voice quavered. "What exactly is in that medical file?" Night wind lifted her hair, framing a face so pale it looked translucent. I noticed how thin she'd become, wrists like kindling. "Get in." I unlocked the Tesla. Inside, I opened a scanned document on my phone. 10-year-old hospital record, see for yourself. Her fingertips shook as she scrolled. "Pregnancy. Taylor? Impossible, I never consented to that." It was the chairman's call. I held her gaze. "You were hospitalized after the crash, they slipped you into surgery." Blood drained from her lips. "Why? Did Julian know?" "He found out later." I exhaled, sympathy sneaking in. The Sterlings knew Julian couldn't steer the ship alone, so they shopped for a capable wife. "You, and the baby, became liabilities." A rueful smile tugged at me. "We both picked the same lousy man, didn't we?" Julian isn't stupid, he knew I was the pragmatic choice, so he let his father erase your child. Yet the Lauren name carries weight. Afraid Chloe would retaliate, Sterling let me weaponize that file to secure a clean divorce. Chloe gagged, I shoved tissues at her. She leaned against the window, gasping. Why tell me now? Because you deserve to know. I started the engine. Home? She shook her head and stumbled out. I watched her fade into the dark, recalling our first meeting, her radiant smile at a gallery talk, confidence bright enough to burn retinas. At dawn Julian's calls barraged my phone. I let them ring. 3 weeks post-IPO, headlines screamed, Sterling Group chairman under investigation. That same morning Chloe walked into Harborview Police Headquarters. I sat in my new corner office watching boxes carted out of the opposite tower. A text arrived, Dad collapsed. I flipped the phone face down. Send white lilies to the medical center, chairman's room. Message? My assistant asked. I smiled. Wish him a swift recovery. That evening 2 small figures crouched outside my penthouse. Ryan's eyes were puffed peaches. Mom, is Grandpa really going to prison? Owen lunged for a hug. I sidestepped, steadying them by the shoulders. Listen, actions have consequences. Remember that for the rest of your lives. Ryan sniffled. Can we still come over for homework? No. Choices carry prices. Understand? Harsh for grade schoolers, maybe, but their cruelty had already schooled me. Julian appeared, eyes equally swollen. Scarlett, if I become the man you imagined, any shot left? I laughed, actually laughed. You won't. Julian, I know you better than you know yourself. You're incapable of being that cruel to your own nature. He's addicted to Sterling's wide-open playground, to freedom bought with my toil. Now he pleads with bloodshot eyes, a last-minute audition for redemption. He'll find another Scarlett soon enough. He mistook Chloe's softness for diversion and my ambition for a cage, forgetting that long-ago lecture where he picked up my fallen pen and said, Cameron, your focus is adorable. After they left, I brewed tea and stood on the balcony. The phone rang again. Chloe. I'm leaving for France. Her voice was calm glass. Thank you, for the truth. No hatred? Plenty, she chuckled. But more for them. Night deepened, city lights flickered on one by one. I powered everything down and poured myself a glass of Barolo. For the first time in years I was nobody's wife, nobody's mother, nobody's rival, just Scarlett. Thanks for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If it moved you, like and share, and tell us your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more tales. We'll see you next time.
The day Mason fired me from Sterling Tech, he announced his engagement to Sophia in front of the entire company. My career and my love life both collapsed in a single afternoon, so I could only drive home in tears to claim the trillion-dollar empire waiting in my name. Yet the moment I stepped through my own front door, I found Sophia throwing herself a birthday bash in my living room. Sophia's face twisted into a sneer as she looked me up and down. Chloe, I never sent you an invite. What kind of shameless stunt is this, slinking into my house unannounced? Mason's voice cracked like a whip. We're done. Stop following me around and get lost. I didn't want to look at these 2 idiots either, but this was literally my house. The people who needed to get lost were clearly them. When Mason fired me in front of everyone and handed my coup title to Sophia, my mind went blank. I glared at him, fury boiling over. Why am I being fired? He slammed his pen onto the desk. You still have the nerve to ask? Did you already forget what you pulled yesterday? I blinked, stunned. All I did was question Sophia a little, and you're kicking me out and giving her my job? Yesterday she posted on Instagram, flashing the outrageously expensive birthday haul her parents had supposedly bought her. The caption gushed, *25 tomorrow, thanks Mom, Dad for the early birthday haul. Love you forever, *. The carousel of photos was stacked with one-of-a-kind high jewelry pieces and selfies with limited-run supercars. Staff had flooded the comments with heart emojis and congratulations, but something felt off. Every bracelet, every hood ornament looked exactly like the heirlooms Mom had presented to me at my own coming-of-age gala. So I'd commented, *sure those came from your mom? Hardly anyone stateside owns those one-of-a-kind pieces or those cars, *. Sophia deleted the entire post within minutes, as guilty as a kid with her hand in the cookie jar. Moments later, Mason rang, roaring so loud the speaker rattled. "Chloe, what the hell are you doing trolling Sophia on Instagram? Everyone knows she's an heiress. Your snide little comment could bring her real trouble. If she storms out of Sterling Tack because of you, I swear I'll make you pay." He hung up before I could answer. I'd barely stepped into the office this morning when HR handed me the termination letter. I fixed my eyes on Mason. "You're throwing me out over something this petty? Mason, have you forgotten who funded this company back when it was just 2 laptops in your garage?" He cut me off, pounding the table so hard coffee sloshed from his mug. "Spare me the hysterics, Chloe. I took pity on you back then and let you tag along. Made you coup out of charity. Everything you have, everything, you owe to me. Without my generosity, you'd still be answering someone else's phone." I almost laughed in his face. Without my seed money, he wouldn't have had rent for that garage. Without my family's contacts, we'd never have closed those first multi-million-dollar deals. Now, for Sophia's sake, he erased my years of sacrifice and booted me like last week's trash. I must have been blind to ever fall for this jerk. Our shouting match drew every employee on the floor. Sideways glances and hushed whispers trailed me like static. Just then Sophia swanned in, all teeth and lashes. She beamed at the crowd. "It's my 25th birthday tonight. Party at my place, everyone's invited." Staff chorused compliments, desperate to stay on her good side. Mason slipped an arm around her waist and lifted his voice. "And while we're celebrating, I've got news. We're getting engaged next month." "Drinks are on us." Gasps rippled through the office. Head swiveled toward me, eyes wide, because until 5 minutes ago everyone thought Mason was still my boyfriend. Humiliation scalded my cheeks, my molars ground so hard they rang. Before I could speak, Sophia pretended to notice me for the first time. "Oh, Chloe, didn't you already get fired? Why are you loitering like a bad smell?" Mason flicked his wrist as if shooing a fly. "Take the 6-figure severance and disappear. I never want to see you again." Sophia's smile turned razor sharp. "Thanks to your screw-up, the company faced a multi-million-dollar loss. I personally salvaged the deal. Mason's generous enough not to sue you, so quit while you're ahead and crawl away." They were rewriting history right in front of me. Everyone on the floor knew the blown contract had been Sophia's fault, not mine. Right then, Sophia and Mason slammed the whole scandal on me, yet no one spoke up in my defense. The main reason was the lavish heiress persona Sophia had been selling was already rock solid in everyone's mind, plus Mason had just announced she was replacing me as coup and that the two of them would be engaged next month. At a moment like this, naturally no one in the company wanted to cross her. That instant, my heart turned to ice. I said nothing more, spun around, and walked out of Sterling Tack. Sophia's taunting, triumphant voice chased me down the hall. "Chloe, don't forget to collect your personal things from Mason's apartment. I'm moving in with him tomorrow, and I don't want a single trace of you left." Understood? I didn't look back. When I stepped outside, my eyes stung, but I didn't cry. I wasn't heartbroken, just furious. Mason and I had been together over 3 years. At the start, I'd poured in money and sweat to help him launch the company, and back then he was tender and attentive. But the moment Sophia joined a few months ago, everything changed. She kept treating staff to 5-star bistros and rooftop mixology lounges, polishing her image as an heiress, slumming it for fun, which made them all believe she was a billionaire's daughter who'd simply picked Sterling Tack for the experience. From that point on, Mason started staying out all night. I sensed something shady between them and confronted him. He always snapped, "Chloe, can you quit the jealousy? Sophia's new, so what if the boss shows a little concern for a new employee? Plus, her family's loaded. Our growth has hit a ceiling, and we need major cash to scale. If her folks invest, we're golden. Stop imagining filth where there isn't any. There's nothing sleazy between Sophia and me." I swallowed his lies whole. Turns out those two liars had been scheming together, and today they served me a spectacular public surprise. Years ago I'd stormed out of the lakefront mansion vowing to Mom that I'd make it on my own, without a dime from them. Now I see how naive I was. With both my career and my love life in tatters, all I could do was wipe my tears and head home to inherit a trillion-dollar dynasty. I went back to Mason's apartment, swept up every last item that was mine, and dumped the lot into the complex trash cans. From this day on, Mason meant nothing to me. I rang Mom overseas and sobbed. She hit the roof, said she was catching the next flight back and would personally make Mason and Sophia regret ever being born. After a good long cry, I felt lighter. But the moment I stepped through the gates of the place I hadn't seen in 3 years, my mood tanked again. Because a dog bit me. The instant I entered the courtyard, a teacup poodle shot out, yapping like crazy. When had we even gotten a dog? Mom knew I'd been bitten as a kid and was terrified of canines. Why keep one at home? Startled, I instinctively kicked out. The nasty little thing sank its teeth into my calf. I yelped, then booted the fluff ball across the grass. It wailed, blood trickled down my leg. Just then a crowd filed out of the mansion. Both sides froze, me and them. Every face belonged to Sterling Tech staff. What were they doing in my house? Before I could ask, Sophia rushed over, cradling the whimpering poodle, and glared. Chloe, who let you into my house? You weren't invited to my birthday bash. Sneaking in, what do you want? Her furious accusation floored me. Since when was this her home? Sure, I'd been gone 3+ years, but I wasn't about to forget my own address. Before I could answer, Mason barked, Chloe, you break in and attack Sophia's pet. Have you lost it? I get that you can't get over me, but I'm done. We're over. Keep stalking me and I'll call the officers. Now get lost. I shook with rage. This is my house. I shouted. The ones who need to scram are you. Mason snickered, sneering. Chloe, did getting dumped fry your brain? This is the Sterling estate. When did it become yours? You grew up in an orphanage, no parents, no family. Since when does the Sterling bloodline include you? Sophia's lip curled. Chloe, if you're jealous of my pedigree, at least invent a smarter lie. Beat it before I really dial 911. The surrounding employees chimed in Sterling Mansion, and Chloe claims it's hers, shameless. That fib couldn't fool a toddler. Deserved the dog bite, trespassing and lying? I'd have had her arrested already. Has Chloe actually snapped? Like, completely lost it? No one believed this was my house. Furious and frantic, I yanked out my phone and snarled at Mason and Sophia, even if you won't call the cops, I will. When the officers get here, we'll see who's lying. Before the words left my mouth, Sophia lunged, ripped the phone from my hand, and hurled it into the koi pond in the courtyard. While I was still frozen, she whipped her arm back and smashed her palm across my face. Chloe, are you done making a scene? You break into my home, attack my teacup poodle, and when I let it slide you just keep pushing. Ungrateful bitch, did you think I was all bark and no bite? She finished with a savage kick to my stomach. I stumbled backward and crashed to the ground, doubling over in pain. Sophia raised her foot again, but Mason caught her arm. Sophia, that's enough. She cut him off with a murderous glare. She hurt my dog. I'm not letting that go. Mason, you're not still sweet on her, are you? Mason's face drained of color. Sophia, we're over. We're getting engaged next month. You're the only one I want. Sophia gave a cold laugh and pointed at me. If you love me, prove it. Mason drew a sharp breath, shot me a vicious look, and slammed his foot into my ribs. While he delivered the kicks, Sophia turned to the gathered staff and said calmly, Chloe trespassed, went psycho, and we subdued her. You all saw it. When the police arrive, we're the ones in the right. Don't just stand there. Help us toss her into the pond so she can cool off. The employees exchanged glances, then gritted their teeth and dragged me to the edge, flinging me into the koi pond. The pond wasn't huge or deep, but the bottom was slick with algae. I slipped, fell twice, swallowed mouthfuls of rank water. Sophia and her crew stood on the rim, laughing at my soaked, shivering mess. I tried to climb out, but Sophia ordered everyone to circle the pond and block every handhold. In the chaos, I spotted my phone gleaming beneath the surface. I grabbed it and dialed 911. They'd been taunting me for 10 minutes, threatening to leave me in the pond overnight, when a middle-aged woman stepped into the courtyard. She took in the scene and paled. "What on earth are you doing?" I didn't recognize her, but Mason and the others clearly did. He greeted her cautiously. "Dorothy, what brings you here?" The staff murmured respectful hellos, and from their words I learned Dorothy was our new housekeeper. I'd been away 3 years, and with Mom constantly overseas, Eleanor must have hired Dorothy in my absence. Sophia smiled sweetly. "This lunatic broke in and attacked my dog. We were just giving her a tiny lesson." Dorothy looked alarmed. "Get her out of there, now. Those koi are priceless. If anything happens to them, Mr. and Sterling will be furious." Sophia's smile faltered. She snapped at Mason to haul me out. Dorothy surveyed the ruined lilies and floating fish food, then scowled at Sophia. Finally she barked at me, "This is the Sterling estate. You come here to cause trouble? Are you suicidal? Get lost!" Sophia smirked and ordered Mason to throw me off the property. Just then sirens wailed up the drive. 2 officers strode into the courtyard. The lead one eyed the chaos and frowned. "Who placed the call?" Before anyone could answer, I lifted my dripping phone and rasped, "I did. These people broke into my house, assaulted me, and threw me in the pond." Sophia cut me off with another slap. "Bitch, still trying to smear us?" "Officer," she trespassed and went berserk. We defended ourselves. Mason and the staff jumped in, piling on lies. Dorothy added indignantly, "Several fish are dead, worth a fortune. You have to make her pay." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Name?" I steadied my breath. "Chloe. Here's my ID. This is my home." Sophia laughed. "Chloe, you really are delusional." Mason and the others stared at me like I was an escapee from psych ward, but Dorothy's face drained of color. She stared, trembling. You said Chloe?" She had definitely heard the name before. Her face was paper white, pure panic. I was certain, Sophia's rich girl act had Dorothy's fingerprints all over it. Dorothy's quavering shriek froze everyone. Sophia and the others turned to her, bewildered. Dorothy's whole body shook. She couldn't meet my eyes and frantically signaled Sophia. Sophia, slow to read Dorothy's desperation, opened her mouth just as the officers ran my ID. At the same moment, Sterling's security came pounding up the drive. They took one look at me, soaked, bleeding, bite marks on my leg, and freaked. "Sterling, what happened? Who did this to you?" "She's still bleeding, hospital, now." The guard's raw concern left Mason gaping. Mason snarled, "She broke in, raving like a lunatic, and you clowns worry about her instead of your owners?" The Sterling tech staffers flanked Sophia, barking at the guards. The guards' glares hardened, Head's voice cracked like a whip. "This is Sterling's house, and you dare blame her? You mangled her and now slander her. Arrest them, officer." Head's words wiped the color from Mason's face. "That's insane," Mason blustered. "This is the Sterling's lakefront mansion. Chloe's an orphan." I cut in, ice cold. "My father is Theodore, my mother is Eleanor. I took Mom's surname at birth. None of you are walking away tonight. Count on it." Panic flickered across their faces. Mason refused to fold. "Bull. If you were a Sterling, why didn't you mention it while we were living in that basement studio? You're fabricating everything." He swung to Sophia. "Tell them, Sophia." Tell the cops Chloe and these rent-a-cops are lying. You're the sole Sterling heiress, right? Sophia's face had blanched, her wild eyes flicked to Dorothy. Dorothy squeezed Sophia's hand and, voice cracking, told the officer, "This psycho's raving, drag her to the precinct." Sophia chimed in, shrill. "The Sterlings have only one daughter, me. Mom never mentioned a bastard. I'll get Mom here right now to expose this fraud." She yanked Dorothy toward the gate. Only an idiot would miss their guilt. Then Mom stepped into the doorway, blocking them. Eleanor's stare sliced through Sophia. "Funny, I don't recall giving birth to you. I have one daughter, Chloe. Who exactly are you, parading as my child?" Theodore glared at Dorothy. "Explain." Now. Dorothy's legs buckled, she crumpled to the marble. Sophia looked ready to faint. Between sobs, Dorothy spilled everything. "After I ran away, Eleanor was overseas non-stop. She'd hired Dorothy to watch the lakefront mansion and feed the koi. At first Dorothy was dutiful. Months of emptiness tempted her. She started pilfering. Theodore's rare whiskey, aged pure cakes, heirloom jewelry belonging to Eleanor and me, she sold it all. Flush with cash, Sophia began living like royalty. They grew bold enough to move in, camping here for ages. In Dorothy's mind, a vacant mansion might as well serve them. When she finished, Dorothy crawled to Eleanor, wailing, "We're sorry, please, have mercy." She dragged Sophia down, forcing her to kowtow. Under the crowd's disgusted stares, Sophia snapped. "You're the thief, not me. You dressed me up as an heiress, bait for some sugar daddy prince. If not for you I wouldn't be ruined." Dorothy gaped, shattered, bawling. Sophia whirled on me, venomous, but Mason and his crew lunged first. "Bitch, you destroyed us. Impersonate a Sterling? Go to hell. You're the housekeeper's daughter who told us to beat Sterling and toss her in the koi pond. Die for that." Of everyone in that room, Mason burned the hottest. He exploded at Sophia, fists and feet flying, roaring, "You bitch, this is all on you. I must have been blind to waste myself on trash like you." Officers muscled Mason away, but not before Sophia's face was pulped purple. Crazy laughter spilled from her split lip. "Yeah, Mason, I conned you, but you're no prince. Chloe starved with you while you built Sterling Tech, and you dumped her for pocket change. A soulless bastard like you has zero right to call anybody low." His eyes promised murder. If looks were knives, she'd already be bleeding out on the marble. "They begged me to forgive." Before I could answer, Dad told the officers. "They broke into our home and assaulted my daughter. We won't settle, make them pay." Mason's crew went sheet white, shooting daggers at Sophia as the cuffs clicked. Half a month in lockup for Mason and his crowd. Dorothy got 10 years for grand larceny. The day they walked out, hashtags were already shredding them. They ducked the storm like turtles. Partners fled, Sterling Tech flatlined. Still, Mason slunk back to our gates, whining, "Chloe, I was hypnotized by that witch Sophia. Give me one more shot, I'll worship you forever." I cut him off. "We're done. You thought a counterfeit heiress would rocket you into the elite. The dream imploded, so you crawl back, shameless. Mason, you never loved me, you loved the safety net when you were broke. The minute something shinier appeared, you traded up. You're unworthy of love. You're not sorry, you're sorry I'm a Sterling. If I weren't, you'd never kneel here. Get out. I don't know you anymore." At my nod, the Sterling security detail hoisted Mason and dragged him out. He thrashed, screaming, "Chloe, one more chance." I swear, then the rest came out raw. "Bitch, if you just told me you were rich I'd never have left." I curse. They gagged him, gave him a parting beating, and hurled him beyond the gates. I spent the next weeks healing at home. When the bite on my leg finally closed, an overnight box arrived, the dead teacup poodle that had bit me. Mom hit the roof, called the officer. Mason had mailed it from a Sterling drop point. Before they could move, a story rocketed to the trending tab. Mason had abducted Sophia, hauled her to the old Sterling Tech roof. She sobbed, knees buckling, but he was past reason. Phone held high, he egayed, "You wrecked me and want mercy? Bitch, you wanted marriage, today was our engagement day. Let's make it official." He clutched her and stepped into empty air. They hit the pavement together, gone. I stared at the headline and exhaled. Their deaths were a ripple, I moved on. I shadowed mom and dad, learning the family business. One day, when I'm old, I might sip rare whiskey and replay this whole messy overture. Thanks for listening. Rate the story 1 to 10, smash like, share, and drop your take in the comments. Subscribe for the next saga. See you next time.
My father-in-law brought home his pregnant, newly divorced first love, homeless and alone. Yet my husband cared even more than Dad did. He abandoned me in the delivery room mid-labor just to make sure that houseguest took her vitamins on time, all because she was the goddess senpai he'd never managed to catch back in college. I slapped the divorce petition across his face. Why don't the two of you just play house and live happily ever after? Later, of course, he came crawling back, begging our daughter to call him daddy. Molly, clutching my new husband's hand, blinked up at him. "Uncle, who are you?" I had just pushed Molly into the world, bones stretched to a 10, when the coughing started and violent chills racked my body. Every face in the delivery room blanched. Amniotic fluid embolism. Move, get blood from the bank now. In the seconds that followed, terror magnified every tremor. Monitors screamed while a nurse sprinted the corridor shouting my husband's name. No answer. What kind of husband vanishes while his wife's giving birth? He was here a minute ago. Where the hell did he go? Forget it, save the mother first. My vision blurred. I pressed my shaking hand to the consent form and signed. Adrian, where are you? I just delivered our child, your longed-for daughter. We'd bickered 2 nights ago, but surely not enough for you to storm off and leave me alone. Before I could wonder further, the paper slipped from my fingers and I blacked out. When I opened my eyes again, I saw not the king of hell, but the hospital ceiling. Thank heaven, the doctors had tugged me back from the brink. Still, Adrian never appeared. On impulse, I opened the home security feed. Sure enough, Sam. He was tucking a cashmere throw over Bianca's rounded belly, handing her a bowl of bird nest soup, patiently pitting a plate of cherries, his voice honey-soft. "Bianca, you're pregnant. You need your vitamins." She gave a small, sad smile and scraped her spoon against the porcelain. "You don't have to do this. I'm just your father's employee." Adrian seemed deaf to her protest. The doting, helpless grin he wore said it all. "The company can't lose you, so take care of yourself. That way Dad won't worry. And you, ever since college you've been like this, never looking after yourself. If I hadn't checked last night and found you hadn't logged your prenatal vitamin, I'd never have known you'd skipped it." I killed the screen. I couldn't watch any more. So he'd missed his wife's life-or-death labor to police his first love's folic acid schedule. How devoted. I glanced at tiny Molly asleep beside me. One traitorous tear slipped out. Pathetic. After Mom and Dad died, I'd knelt at their graves and sworn I'd stay strong forever. Adrian had been the perfect boyfriend. So perfect I'd married him the instant we graduated, handing him my entire future. I loved him, not only for how good he was, but because I'd seen his college photos and knew about the girl he'd chased for 4 fruitless years. I never minded the past. Character doesn't change. In an age of fast love, if he could stay faithful to that old crush, he could grow old with me, steady, loyal. Then, 6 months ago, the girl from those photos stepped through our front door. Live in color, behind my father-in-law. Bianca, star executive from the regional branch, battered by her ex, divorced and pregnant, with nowhere to go. Dad parked her under our roof to keep her from being poached by rivals. In that instant I saw something raw flood Adrian's eyes. After that, I felt it. In the marriage that was supposed to be only ours, part of him had checked out. While I bent over the toilet, retching my guts out, begging for a sip of water or a towel, he was in the kitchen whipping up midnight noodles for Bianca. When I hauled myself up 5 times a night, needing a steady arm, he was busy massaging her swollen ankles. Tiny betrayals, grain by grain, until the fortress of our future crumbled into sand. I drifted off. When I woke again, Adrian sat beside me, letting the nurse show him how to hold the baby. Picture-perfect husband and father.
He brushed a reverent kiss on my forehead. Honey, you were incredible. I wired $300,000 to your card. Call it hardship pay. I shoved him away. Does the Sterling family think children are for sale? When Bianca delivers, how fat will her cash gift be? His face darkened, realizing he flipped the accusation back at me. You're tracking me? Spying on our security feed. So I went home to help Bianca. So what? She's Dad's top talent, he's abroad. Someone has to look after her. 2 pregnant women under one roof. I'm run ragged, and you still complain. When will you ever think about me? He shouted so loudly the nurse poked her head in and asked for quiet. I shut my eyes in despair. Why couldn't Adrian understand? I never wanted money. I wanted his whole heart. In marriage, a wandering heart is already unfaithful. Adrian, let's divorce. Molly comes with me. The assets stay with you. Have I spoiled you rotten? His voice went arctic. I give you money and I'm the villain? Or maybe you've already lined up your next man. No wonder you and that guy look fishy. Your old flame works right here in this hospital, doesn't he? Bull! Before I could finish, a man walked in loaded down with shopping bags. Jillian, Big Brother came to salute the hero who escaped the king of hell. Son of a... Adrian slammed Molly into the bassinet and swung a fist. So you're the bastard messing with my wife. I'll beat you to a pulp. When he heard we were divorcing and that he was the reason, I could have sworn Chase's mouth twitched in a smile, though it vanished just as fast. Still, he spoke for me. Adrian, I think you're mistaken. Jillian and I are only friends. Your divorce isn't about me. I'm here because last night she coded from an amniotic fluid embolism. Amniotic fluid embolism? Dylan froze, then whipped out his phone and started typing. With my 20/20 vision, I watched him add 3 dense lines to the pregnancy care note titled, Vitamins, Bianca. Ridiculous, my baby was already born. Whose checklist was that for? Amniotic fluid embolism, no big deal, right? Look at you, alive and kicking. I exhaled. The nightside cried as he slipped away from me now felt like echoes from someone else's life. I met his gaze steady. Adrian, grant me the divorce. Don't make me hate you. How long are you going to throw this tantrum? Fine, another 100,000. Happy now? My family's money. I gripped the rail and hauled myself upright, fury shaking my exhausted body while he stayed seated, treating our marriage like a debate tournament. If you won't sign, I'll go to Bianca myself. 6 months pregnant. Who knows what happens if I upset her? Don't! Adrian panicked. Before his brain could catch up, raw fear had already flung his body between me and the door. A beat later, he realized how defensive he looked. He hesitated for a long moment. Whatever you say, just don't go to her. I'm begging you. At my request, Chase booked the best Serenity in town and meticulously bought everything Molly and I would need. Adrian, who knew what filled his days, maybe nothing. He simply forgot the woman who had almost died giving him a daughter. After that single visit, he never stepped back inside the hospital. Brand new to motherhood, I had no idea what to do. Burping, soothing, nursing, diaper changes. Chase stayed up with me through every round. On discharge day, he pressed a key into my hand. Reading the question in my eyes, he smiled gently. Your name's on no deed. Now that you're divorcing, the baby deserves a home. It's the house next to mine so I can help. Chase was only my late father's best friend's son, yet at that moment he looked more like Molly's dad, patiently patting her back. Chase, you don't owe me any of this. The next second he was back to his real self. Touched. Venmo me 50, it's Thursday. Get lost. The Serenity he chose was the city's top tier. Professional nurses watched Molly around the clock, and I finally slept a full, dreamless sleep. In that sleep I met the Adrian I'd fallen for. I was a college freshman. He'd already graduated. I worried about GPA and credits from an average family, while he was already general manager at his father's Sterling. He had spoiled me, gave me everything. After an all-nighter, he could barely keep his eyes open, but still stayed up to help with my capstone project. When my period ran late after the HPV vaccine, I was terrified we'd slipped up and I was pregnant. I sobbed so hard I hiccuped. He showed up at my parents' door waving a deed and bank books, determined to marry me on the spot. Yet now, after I finally gave birth to our child, when we should have become the perfect family of 3, his heart had changed. I woke to shouting outside the suite. Adrian! He pushed past the nurses, kicked the door open, and without a word yanked me out of bed by the wrist. A nurse cried, Sir, you can't. Miss Emerson just delivered. She has an episiotomy. The sutures could tear. Out of my way. He spun toward me, face twisted. Jillian, how vicious can you be? I already agreed to the divorce. Why harass Bianca? Move. You're coming home. You'll apologize to her in front of my father and me. He gave me no chance to speak or refuse, dragging me down the corridor and shoving me into his car. He drove like fury, brows locked. I pulled up the security feed on my phone. Sometime after midnight, Bianca had begged Adrian not to divorce because of her. Hysterics made her feel the baby drop. Watching her cry like a frightened bunny, Adrian never asked questions. He simply blamed me. Their family doctor had already confirmed the baby was fine. Only then did Adrian breathe again. Turning to me, his eyes were ice. Be grateful Bianca's baby is okay. Now apologize. Why obsess over our past? We're only colleagues now. If anything were going to happen, it already would have. I married you, what more do you want? Can't you be bigger than this? Pain knifed through me. I couldn't stand. Cold sweat soaked every pore. I leaned against the wall, speechless. Stop the act, you're lousy at it. And what are you doing here? Adrian glared at the uninvited Chase. She's my wife. This is family business. Stay out of it, outsider. Chase grabbed Adrian by the collar and slammed him into the wall. Do you know Jillian walked through hell to have your kid? Amniotic fluid embolism kills. She's 5 days postpartum and you drag her out. What is she to you? When did you ever treat her like your wife? Just because the best obstetrician in the hospital looked after her, you suspected her. Then dumped her for your first love? What right do you have to say family? I'm getting her the best divorce lawyer. She'll get half the assets and you won't lay a finger on that baby. I'm so sorry, please don't misunderstand. Bianca called from the hallway, clutching her belly. I overheard Adrian on the phone about divorce and panicked. It's not Jillian's FAU. Oh my God, you're bleeding. Following her horrified stare, I saw crimson blooming across my pajamas. Chase scooped me up and raced back to hospital. Adrian followed, face full of regret. Sweetheart, what's wrong? Don't scare me, it's all my fault. The episiotomy sutures had torn. The doctors explained I'd needed a complete blood transfusion. Any wound had to be kept absolutely quiet. Adrian nodded at the chart like an oath. Doctor, don't worry, I'll look after my wife. He promised the doctor, me, even Chase, everyone except himself. After 2 days of half-hearted care, Bianca phoned. He dropped the bird nest soup spoon and reached for his coat. What now, Bianca? He'd already forgotten his vow. She suddenly wants hot and sour soup. Pregnant women are picky and moody, you know. I slid open the drawer and held out the prepared papers. Sign this and you can go. Jillian, don't be rash. We'll talk when I'm back. My patience was ash. Sign, or today I die right here. You're not leaving. Bianca's ringtone chimed like a death knell. Adrian scrawled his name without reading a clause, cap still off, and sprinted away. He always said he loved me, and every single time he walked out when I needed him most. A soft snort came from the doorway. Chase stepped in and flipped through the petition. Congrats, brand new single mom. Want to find Molly a new dad? Wow, he's generous, half of everything. Realization dawned. He gave a wry smile. You planned this, didn't you? I smiled back. From the day I decided on divorce, I had drafted 2 petitions. The stingy one had been my concession to win custody. The 50-50 one became my leverage once he picked Bianca. I knew he would never abandon her, so why not wait for the moment I could demand more for Molly and me? People say a wife should focus on her husband's wallet instead of counting favors. When you're young, you laugh. Marriage is a sparkling ocean for love's ship to sail. Now I understand. People change, ships sink, but cash and real estate stay loyally in your hand. I gazed at the bright daylight outside, then turned to Chase, whose worry lined his face, and smiled. You've known me for years. Do you really still not get it? If I'm brave enough to ante up, I'm brave enough to fold and walk away. This marriage game? I'm done playing it with him. The day I finished my confinement, I moved back to Chase's house. The unit next door, the one he'd loaned me, had been empty for months and was now being deep cleaned. What I didn't expect was to find Chase's parents waiting inside. The moment they heard I'd divorced, they panicked, drove up from Southport overnight, and announced they were staying to help with the baby. Jillian, your uncle and I watched you grow up. Your dad was his best friend. Gone too soon, we've long considered you our own daughter and Molly our real granddaughter. I smiled hard and hid the tears behind it. While married to Adrian, I'd buried myself in Sterling family trivia and quit visiting them. When their own accident happened, Chase's parents were the ones who went to the morgue for me. I drowned in Adrian's honeyed words and found no time to repay the people who truly loved me. Watching them coax Molly between delighted grins while heaping food into my bowl, I felt my heart melt into a puddle. My former father-in-law was a traditionalist who enforced silence at meals. The sterling dining table had never known the easy give-and-take of chopsticks or cheerful small talk. This felt like a home. The paperwork was finished within days. My share of the assets hit my account almost immediately. Adrian called several times asking to meet. I refused every one. Can't help it. Now everyone in the house, not just Molly, clings to me like Velcro. Chase keeps claiming he's exhausted. Playing with Molly is his decompression. The second he's off shift, he charges into the nursery. Helen and Robert arrive at dawn to tidy up and fight over who gets to push Molly's stroller, telling every neighbor this is their granddaughter. The little sprout grows at light speed. In my head, she's still that tiny, wrinkly bundle. Blink and she's a mini person squinting up at me with crescent moon grins. Night feedings are brutal. She howls until my temples throb, but watching her grow fills me with pure, uncomplicated hope. One evening, Colin's wife rang. "Jillian, did you hear?" Bianca delivered. "The woman's a machine," negotiated a deal between contractions. "Your ex-father-in-law was so moved he's gifting her head office shares and a board seat. You two better lawyer up, or that fortune lands in outsider pockets." Talking about the Sterlings now felt like discussing strangers. "Thanks for the heads up, Morgan, but Adrian and I are divorced." "Huh," Colin cut in. "At dinner 2 nights ago, Adrian swore he's taking you to Hawaii, said he owes you years of amends." I was still processing when, stroller in hand, I ran into Adrian at Riverside, exactly where he'd decided to wait for me. He was dressed to impress, cradling an enormous bouquet. "How did you know I'd be here?" I asked, stunned. He chuckled, eyes sparkling. "I gave you plenty of money. You're not about to job hunt. Your routine's child's play. My assistant tracked your card." I gaped. "You investigated me? Who am I to you, an employee, a chauffeur? Ever heard of respect?" Shoppers had begun to slow, whispering theories about the makeup-free woman with the baby and the polished man on one knee. He waved my words away. "Enough negativity. Today's our reunion." Adrian looked up, dropped to one knee, and thrust the flowers toward me. "Jillian, I love you. Bianca's delivered and returned to work. My duty is done. From now on, I'll help raise your daughter. Say yes, let's start over." The crowd, thinking they'd wandered into a rom-com, clapped and chanted, "Say yes, say yes, say yes." "Jillian, I know you're proud, but with all these witnesses singing our song, can't you admit the truth? You still love me, come home." Suddenly Molly, strapped to my hip, erupted in sneezes. Snot ran toward her mouth as scarlet hives crawled across her cheeks. Only then did I spot the lilies braided through the bouquet. "Adrian, are you insane?" My fingers shook over the emergency dial. "Molly's allergic, especially to lilies." "Sorry." He flung the flowers aside. "I didn't know." Watching the rash creep toward her scalp, I wanted to sprout wings to the ER. He chased me, still apologizing, and caught my wrist while I hailed a cab. "I really didn't, Jillian. It's not my fault, forgive me." I slapped him so hard his head snapped. "Back off." She could go into anaphylactic shock. "You know nothing. The day she was born you were babysitting Bianca. 4 months and you've never spent a single night with her. How dare you propose now? How dare you waste breath on proposals while she can't breathe? If anything happens, I'll drag you to hell myself." I must have looked demonic. He let go instantly. Fortunately, the doctors acted fast. Molly slept peacefully in my arms. Adrian arrived moments later, exhaling relief. "See, shock is dramatic. Babies are delicate, she's lively as ever. Now we can discuss us." Chase burst in, ortho badge still swinging, hair plastered to his forehead. "Is Molly okay?" Spotting Adrian, he straightened, instantly cool. "She's asleep." "Haha, lucky me. If she were awake, she'd be clawing at me for cuddles." "Mom made your favorite, pan-seared beef with asparagus. Dinner's waiting." Adrian stared. "Mom. Home. Jillian, what's going on?" I ignored him, rose, and asked Chase softly, "Shift over?" He nodded. I turned back to Adrian. "You love intel. Dig it up yourself. Come on, Jillian." He glanced from me to Chase and rubbed his temples. "I wrote you a generous check, and you're settling for some broke resident? Cute ploy to make me jealous. You women and your theatrics." I apologized. "Stop punishing yourself. Dad adores you, don't disappoint him. What you paid was merely what you owed." We ended. Each time you chose Bianca and walked away. I took Chase's hand and walked out. Back home, Adrian's messages pinged nonstop. "I know you never wanted the divorce, so why won't we just start over? We've been together 6 years, 6 whole years. You loved me so much. How could you possibly be with someone else? Looking after Bianca is for my dad's sake. If anything goes wrong and it hits the press, his reputation is finished. I promise you I won't cross any lines with her again, okay? The messages were so dense I couldn't keep up, so I muted Adrian altogether. Chase leaned over, set a plate of sliced kiwi in front of me, and scooped Molly into his arms. The tiny bundle that had been fussing in my lap went instantly quiet in his hold, gumming her pacifier and staring up at him like he hung the moon. Pure adoration. No wonder the sales clerk had assumed Chase was Molly's dad when we shopped together. I'm off this weekend. Why don't we drive down to Southport? It was the hometown Chase and I shared. I was thinking Molly should meet her grandparents, he added. I went still. He hesitated. Sorry. Yesterday you fell asleep looking at your parents' photo. When I moved your phone, I saw it. But I didn't scroll, I swear. I stood and wrapped my arms around him. Morgan, for every good thing you do for me. When I'd decided to marry Adrian, Mom and Dad had worried the distance was too great. I'd tossed my braid, cheeks puffed in defiance. Travel's so easy now, just a few hours. I'll visit all the time. Yet once I was married, either some cousin needed help or Adrian and his father needed household backup. Now Molly was too little to leave. My youth trickled away, and the energy to shuttle back and forth vanished. In the end I did go south with Chase and Molly. Chase gently wiped the dust from my parents' headstone and set out fresh offerings. He moved as though he'd done this 100 times before. Molly really did share blood with them. She lay quietly in the stroller, studying their photos on the stone while chewing her pacifier, not a single cry. I talked until tears sheeted my face. Chase listened, then handed me a tissue. Mr. and Mrs. Emerson, don't worry. I'll take care of Jillian and Molly. That promise stands forever. Leaving Willowbrook, we ran into our old neighbor. Oh my, Jillian and the Emerson boy. Last time you two were in college. Now look, a baby already. Before I could explain, Chase laced his fingers through mine. Yes, Mrs. Green, it's been ages. How have you been? The warmth from our joined hands spread straight to my heart. After she left, he said, Small towns love gossip. If word gets out you're divorced and raising a child alone, the tongues will wag. I tilted my head. You don't happen to like me, do you? Pure mischief on my part, but he stammered. And no, don't be silly. Ah, and here I was ready to make you Molly's dad. Since you're not interested, forget it. Grinning, I scooped Molly and hurried off. Chase sprinted after us. Hey, I never said I wasn't willing. I am, did you hear me? After the Southport trip, something between Chase and me shifted. Touches we'd shared since childhood now hummed with new electricity, making me blush and race like a college girl with her first crush. While rocking Molly that night I wondered, was I ready for a fresh start? A sudden knock echoed, slurred shouts riding at Adrian. Colin stood there, propping up a drunk Adrian, apology written on his face. Sorry, Jillian. He got wasted and insisted on coming. Nothing I said could stop him. What happened? Why so much booze? Colin lowered his voice. Sterling mess. His dad's sick, and Bianca's been courting every board member for extra shares, scheming against the old man. Adrian's rattled. He kept calling your name in the car. You were married. Help me look after him a bit. I turned and speed-dialed Bianca to come collect her golden boy. Adrian lurched up from the floor, locked his arms around me from behind, liquor on every breath. No, Jillian, I'm not leaving. I want to stay with you. When I drank you'd brew me honey pear tonic. Now you just toss me aside. I love you, always have. I don't want us broken, please don't make me go. Funny, Adrian trafficking in the past. The neighbors, a young couple plus toddler, threw robes on and hustled over. At the sight of Adrian they hauled him outside. I'm not going. This is my wife's place, she loves me, she'd never kick me out. Chase shielded us. Take one more step, and I'm calling the cops. Adrian looked wrecked, bent against the wall, eyes blood red, pinned on me. Jillian, you promised. You swore you'd love me forever, never leave. You're not Jillian. My Jillian would never be this cruel. Bianca arrived fast, still in heels, hustling despite nursing. With her driver, she dragged the babbling Adrian away. Helen pulled me inside, gripping my hands, resolve in her eyes. Jillian, if you still want your ex, tell Chase now. A mother protects her boy. I don't want him hoping in vain. What are you saying, Mrs. Emerson? Chase loves you, has for ages. Mom's notice. Since your divorce, his smile hasn't left his face. I know you need time, but if there'll never be anything, please let him know. I stood frozen. According to Helen, the summer after our college entrance exam. Chase had planned to confess. But those 2 months I was abroad with my parents. By fall we'd scattered to different universities, and freshman year I was already with Adrian. No wonder one weekend he'd shown up, only to turn pale when I introduced Adrian. I'd thought it was car sickness and fetched him Dramamine. All the clues had been there. He'd simply stayed by my side quiet for years. Mrs. Emerson. I squeezed her hand. Don't worry. My marriage is over, utterly. After that night Adrian stayed away. Colin texted gossip. My former father-in-law was critical, and general manager Adrian together with shareholder Bianca, each armed with clients and connections, were clawing for shares, openly brawling in board meetings, nostalgia long dead. I ended the call without a ripple. Life now is good. Molly can say mama. I took a work-from-home customer service job, so I can keep her close. $4,000 a month, plus Adrian's support, more than covers us. We're not rich, but this is the life I want, and the woman I finally recognize in the mirror. Money shapes the world. Chase suggested we start scouting a little program for Molly early. He claimed that playing with me at home was a waste of time, and we might as well drop her off with teachers and kids her own age. Who could have guessed? Jamie wriggled free of the teacher, sobbing and shrieking for daddy. Molly is such a daddy's girl. Mr. Emerson must be a terrific father. Molly wouldn't stay, so the little plan was shelved for now. Yet my heart had already drifted to the man beside me who was bent on making her laugh. Chase! I stopped outside the learning center. What's up? Shall we give it a try? On the way home, I ducked into a bubble tea shop. The clerk asked, "What would you like?" Chase cut in. "How did you know I've got a girlfriend now?" Childish beyond belief. When Helen heard we were officially together, she pressed her hands over her mouth in excitement, stuffed a fat cash gift into my pocket, and kept calling me sweetheart. We truly became a family, raising and adoring Molly together, throwing her first birthday bash. Days with the one I loved, and our daughter felt so blissful I had all but forgotten Adrian. But he apparently hadn't forgotten me. He said he wanted to see me. It was biting cold, yet Adrian waited stubbornly downstairs. Snow piled on his shoulders and hair while he stared dully at the windows. Chase had taken Molly to a dads and kids meetup. I wrapped myself in a coat and walked down. We looked at each other in silence. Only the hush of falling snow crackled around us. "Jillian, are you really with that man?" I nodded. He lowered his head in a bitter smile. At first my father asked me to look after Bianca. Look after being code for keep her tethered to the company, but every time she smiled at me so gently. That smile was something I'd chased all through college and never caught. Jillian, you can't imagine what it felt like. It was the deepest obsession of my golden youth. Only after we divorced did I realize what mattered most. We'd been together so long that everything had turned into reflex, my love for you included. I'd reach for you in sleep, call your name without thinking, want to share every bite of good food. Only today did I finally see my own heart. The one I truly love is you, not some ghost of campus nostalgia. He popped the trunk. Inside, every gift I'd ever given him was laid out neatly, laptop down to keychain. Jillian, since you left, these memories have kept me alive. Can't we start over? I love you. Please give us another. Too late. I cut him off. Only then did I notice how sunken his eyes were, how thin he'd become, the dark circles betraying countless sleepless nights. But what did that have to do with me? Stop dreaming. I will never have anything to do with you again. Adrian gave a wan smile. Jillian, you have no idea how tired I've been. Mommy! Chase returned with Molly. She stretched toward me for a hug. Adrian's eyes glistened with tears at the sight of her. Oh, Molly's so big. I'm Daddy, let Daddy hold you, okay? Molly clutched Chase's neck, pouted, and eyed him warily. Uncle, who are you? I have a daddy and a mommy. I don't know you. Adrian's outstretched hand froze midair. I slipped my arm through Chase's. I've said everything. There's nothing left. Don't come looking for me again, my boyfriend won't like it. That day Adrian stood downstairs for the longest time, motionless as a statue. I don't understand why people only learn to cherish after they've lost. But life offers no rewind. Once gone, it's gone. Those who fail to treasure don't deserve to possess. Molly started preschool at 2. Big tough Chase watched her tiny figure disappear inside and cried so hard in the car his face turned red, then buried himself in my arms for comfort. I tried job hunting, but with zero work experience I kept hitting walls. Since vacations would be scarce once I found employment, Chase proposed, "Let's get married." Wedding prep kept me spinning. Then a huge sum of money hit my account. The sender, Bianca. I don't take gifts I haven't earned, so I asked her to meet. At Bluebird she sat alone, elegant and gentle as ever. I came straight to the point. What's the money for? You've heard about the Sterlings, right? She sipped her coffee unhurriedly, unruffled by the 7-figure transfer. Richard passed 3 months ago. The company collapsed. Ah, my condolences. This is everything Adrian got after fighting me for a year and a half. Every asset he walked away with. He asked me to give it to you before he left the Sterling estate. I frowned. Where is he? He moved out, lives alone in a cramped, rundown studio apartment. Bianca met my gaze. He's in awful shape. He'll stare at your wedding photo for hours. Last week, in a daze, he called my nanny by your name and even stuck a wig on my son, shouting Molly. Crazy, right? She cleared her throat. A day as husband and wife breeds 100 days of grace. You were together for so long. I'm begging you to reach out, throw him a lifeline. Richard was always good to me, and Adrian and I go way back. I can't watch him destroy himself. She slid a photo across the table. Once the mighty CEO, now hunched over a coffee table, scooping plain noodles into his mouth, hair matted like a beggar's. Sorry, I said with a light laugh. That might be inconvenient. Why? Even an outsider like me knows how close you two were. How did it get this far? I pulled 2 wedding invitations from my purse. I'm getting married. Meeting her stunned stare, I smiled wider. One for you, one to pass to Adrian. And Morgan, if you hadn't shown up, he wouldn't have sprinted after that old obsession and ignored wife and child. I might never have found my real happiness. Before leaving, I wiggled my phone. I've refunded the money. I'll take what's mine, but not a cent that isn't. Keep your dynasty drama. I don't want your bad juju rubbing off on me. Outside, Chase leaned against the car. Without a word, he headed for the highway. What are we doing? Bro's not telling. We drove all the way to Willowbrook. In front of my parents' graves, he pulled out the invitation. Hand in hand, we bowed. Mom, Dad, rest easy. I'll care for Jillian and Molly forever. Count on it. Under the setting sun, we laced our fingers tight. We will never let go, our whole lives long. Thanks for listening to today's story. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? If you liked this video, please like and share it with friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more great stories. See you next time.
When the iPhone buzzed, Julian was basking at the dead center of the velvet-roped circus. He answered with practiced boredom, impatience stitched into every syllable. What now? On the other end, my voice was flat, a pond without ripples. Julian, you forgot our 8th anniversary again. He snorted, as though my reminder were junk mail. I'm entertaining clients. Don't start. I'm not starting. A beat. I enunciated slowly, letting each word ride the static straight into his ear. I want a divorce. The papers are on the nightstand. Come home and sign. When Julian pulled into the garage, silence met him like a slammed door. The motion sensor light never flared. He barked my name out of habit, only the great room answered, hollow. Sienna, what gimmick is this? He yanked loose his tie, fumbled for the switch. Pulled halogen flooded the space, spotlighting a life once curated down to the hand soap, now a sterile showroom. Every trace of us had vanished. My citrus candle, Andrew's dinosaurs, Haley's glitter ponies, the smiling trio in the silver frame, gone. As though we'd never breathed here. His heart lurched. He took the stairs 2 at a time. On the bed, pajamas were laid out with hospital corners, beside them a single folder. Divorce agreement. The flimsy pages almost disintegrated between his fingers. I was walking away with nothing, except full custody of the kids. Veins pounded at his temples, fury tasted metallic. He stabbed my number. Sienna, is this a joke? Blackmail? You actually think I'll sign? Across town, I lounged on a new IKEA sofa, children tucked under each arm, cartoon dragons dancing on the TV. Andrew and Haley giggled, safe. I lowered the volume. I don't need you to believe me. I need you to sign. You imagine you can survive without me? I handed you everything you have. I almost laughed. Handed me everything? Julian, who dragged you out of the gutter when your family laughed you off? Who co-wrote the Sterling pitch deck at 3 a.m. on instant noodles? Who held you while you cried about seed money that never came? I climbed with you from 0 to the penthouse, not to be downsized into Vance eyesore once the view got good. My whisper cut cleaner than any scream. What you own is yours. It's not a license to humiliate me, and me? I smiled, weightless. I'll flourish, without you. I hung up, blocked him, one fluid swipe. Silence, at last. He stared at the dead line, pulse jackhammering. Never, in 8 years, had I spoken like that. No tantrum, no tears, just verdict. Panic braided itself around his lungs. He bolted back to the driveway, fired up the thunder-blooded supercar I hated, and lashed through empty streets. Sure, I was sulking at some girlfriends, ready to fold at a single appeasing call. He rang every mutual acquaintance, none had seen me. Only then did it strike him, I had no circle left, I'd traded it for his world. Now I'd taken that world and vaporized. He wandered until dawn, taste of stale scotch on his tongue. Morning found him shambling into headquarters. His assistant set black coffee on the desk, trembling. "Mr. Sterling, your black coffee," he grimaced. "Why is it bitter?" Previously Mrs. Sterling added 2 sugar cubes. She remembered. Julian froze. Sienna catalogued every minutiae, the ginger broth for his stomach, the lavender mist for his insomnia, shirts starched to surgical crispness, comforts he'd mistaken for gravity, gone, ripping holes through routine. "Out," he barked. Alone, he sank into the throne chair that suddenly felt stadium-wide. "She's bluffing. A housewife missing 8 resume years, how long can she last? 3 days, tops, she'll crawl back." He tried spreadsheets, columns morphed into her serene, merciless face. 3 days, nothing. 7, still nothing. Panic mutated into mania. He rushed to the preschool, withdrawn, re-enrolled elsewhere. Private investigators hit walls, I'd ghosted every database. How dare she actually leave? Then Eleanor called. "Julian, what carnage is this? Sienna moved out?" The gossip's front page from the Hamptons to the board. "She wants divorce," he croaked. "Rowan. Fix it." The Sterling name is becoming a punchline. "She won't answer. Go to her parents, drag her back by the ear if necessary." He sped to the crumbling midtown complex he'd never deigned to visit. My parents' door now felt like the last gate to salvation. When my parents' doorbell rang, I was on the couch with them, half watching the late show. Dad opened up and froze. There on the stoop stood Julian, sleek suit wrinkled, jaw dusted with last night's shadow, eyes bloodshot. "What do you want?" "Dad, I came for Sienna." The word was a plea. "You're no son of mine, we don't climb that high." Dad blocked the doorway, arms folded. Mom hurried over. The instant she saw him her eyes glazed red. "Julian, what did our Sienna ever do to you that you had to grind her into the dirt?" "Mom, don't you dare call me that." Mom's voice cracked. "The night you left her alone at your anniversary gala to chase that starlet, did you remember she was your wife, that I was the woman you used to call Mom?" The color drained from Julian's face. They knew everything. I rose from the sofa and walked to the threshold, calm as still water. "Leave. We've nothing left to talk about." "Sienna." A spark flared in his eyes, he reached for my hand. "Come home, please." I was wrong. "Never again, I swear." I stepped back before his fingers brushed mine, Vance's instinctive flinch of revulsion. Asterisk, now you're sorry? Too late, asterisk, broken mirrors don't uncrack, Julian. You taught me that. This isn't some tantrum. I simply don't want you anymore. My gaze slid past him to the neon yellow sports car idling at the curb. You traded me in like last year's model. Now I'm trading you. His whole frame shook, every last fleck of color left his handsome face. No, it wasn't like that. Mindy and I are, whatever you are, it's no longer my concern. I cut him off, voice flat. I wish you two a long, happy life together. I turned to my parents. Dad, Mom, shut the door. I'm tired. The slab of oak slammed, locking his desperate reflection outside. Left on the landing, he listened to the living room laughter drifting through the wood, to my soft lullabies carrying Andrew and Haley towards sleep, every note another scalpel sliding across his heart. He slumped against the peeling paint and, for the first time, tasted the copper tang of real regret. Julian's ego-dictated brain snapped into full-blown madman mode the moment he realized I was gone. Assuming I was merely hiding at my parents', He staged a comedy he dubbed Operation Win Her Back, Sam his only witness. Every dawn he parked that spaceship of a car outside our modest row house, clutching a crimson bouquet big enough for Valentine's billboards, rain or shine. Neighborhood gossips feasted. Asterisk, ain't that the Sterling Group CEO mooning like a lost statue? Asterisk, heard his wife walked. Serves him right, sowed wild oats and lost the whole damn farm. Asterisk, I watched from behind the lace curtain, coldly amused. Asterisk hilarious. Wish you'd thought of that sooner, Jamie? Asterisk. Mom and Dad asked if they should chase him off. I shook my head. Let him roast. Free entertainment for the block. My indifference lit a fuse inside him. When waiting failed, he manufactured coincidences. He popped up beside the produce shelves, wresting grocery bags from my arms. He haunted the entrance of Andrew's new robotics class, hoping for a wave that never came, but Andrew, protective little man that he is, stared him down. Mister, please stop bothering my family. Haley peeped from behind my knee. Mister, she echoed, eyes wide. The word mister, dull, polite, meaningless, hacked at Julian's pride like a rusty blade. Just as he ran out of tricks, a front-page bomb exploded. Sterling ex-wife rival Fortress Capital as VP. The photo showed me in a steel gray pantsuit, hair swept up, laughing beside Landon. That Sienna, sun-touched, ruthless, alive, was one Julian had never met. He stormed the Fortress lobby, cornered me by the elevator bank. Sienna! You're doing this to spite me. His fingers viced my wrist. Mr. Sterling, kindly let go. We're in public, Mr. Sterling? He laughed, broken glass in his throat. That's what you call me now, you prefer ex-husband? I arched a brow. You took this job to punish me, admit it. Punish you? I nearly smiled. Julian, you're not the axis of my universe. I'm simply cashing the check I should have written 8 years ago, one made out to myself. I leaned in, breath brushing his ear. And Fortress offered the biggest signing bonus. I twisted free and strode into the gold-paneled lift, leaving him center stage in a sidewalk circus. Across town, the starlet he once chased for excitement finally had her opening. Mindy copied my cadence, my roast chicken recipe, the precise knot I used on Julian's ties. She believed that if she Xeroxed me convincingly, the title Mrs. Sterling would autofill. Avery, pitiful and priceless. At first Julian tolerated the counterfeit. Vance Echo was better than Vance Empty Mansion. But copy smear. Her soup tasted metallic, her closet reorganization hid tomorrow's shirts. When he raged over disappointing earnings, she whimpered in corners instead of sliding a glass of water across his desk and saying, asterisk, fix the problem, don't break the room. Asterisk, comparison sharpened the blade. In the end, the imitation only proved how irreplaceable the original had been. Every time Mindy tried to copy her, it felt like another reminder to Julian of exactly what he had lost. Finally, when Mindy once again misplaced a critical folder and made him miss a make-or-break meeting, Julian exploded. His eyes bloodshot, he stabbed a finger at her and roared, "Who are you? Why are you turning yourself into her? Do you have any idea how sick it makes me to see you do this?" Mindy froze at the savagery on his face, tears slid down her cheeks like broken beads. Julian. I only wanted to be good to you. I love you, love me? He laughed as though she'd told the best joke in the world. What you love is the title of Mrs. Sterling, the luxury Sterling Group can give you. Get out. Get out of my house, now. With his own hands he shredded the consolation prize he'd brought home. Yet with Mindy gone, the mansion felt emptier, more than ever like a gilded tomb. He began spending entire nights awake, numbing himself with brandy. He couldn't stop scrolling through my social feeds. My professional life was thriving. I led my team from one closed deal to the next, and my name was suddenly on everyone's lips. On weekends I took the kids on picnic trips. In the photos Andrew and Haley outshone the sun itself. My world, without him, was vivid and full. His world, without me, was a wreck. That stark contrast was a dull blade, carving away at his pride day after day in a slow public execution. At last he understood, I wasn't playing hard to get. I truly, genuinely, didn't want him anymore. Vantage Capital and Sterling Group locked horns over a new energy project. The deal meant everything to Sterling. Julian needed it to steady the share price and stop the company's slide. He was determined to win. And I, running point for Vantage, became the boulder in his path. Here it comes, I thought. I skimmed the project file, a cold smile tugging at my lips. Thanks to my inside knowledge as someone who'd lived this story before, I knew exactly where it was headed. On the surface it looked like the juiciest steak in the market. Underneath, its core tech carried a fatal flaw that would detonate into a safety scandal 2 years down the road. In the last life Sterling had almost gone bankrupt because of it. I had pulled off Vance's 11th hour rescue, burning out the last of my strength to save Julian. This time I would not play the savior. I would stand at the edge and watch him dive. No, help him pick the spot. On bid day Julian and I met head on. His gaze was a tangle of fury, frustration, and a plea he would never admit. Sienna, back off. This project is life or death for me, he said under his breath. Mr. Sterling, the market is a battlefield. May the best firm win, I replied, polite as a press release. The bidding war turned savage. Julian finally tabled a razor-thin price that left almost no margin. Everyone assumed Vantage would fold. Even Landon frowned. Ellis, we can't match that. I only smiled and told him to wait. When the final round opened, I announced, Vantage Capital withdraws from this auction. Gasps rippled through the room. Julian stared, stunned that I'd walked away so easily. He had won, but there was no triumph on his face. He looked at me, lost. I met his eyes, extended Vance's open hand, and smiled a smile with layers he hadn't decoded yet. Julian, the real show starts now. He didn't know I'd already laid the trap. Using my foresight, I had quietly signed the overseas team that owned the replacement technology and bought their patents in Vantage's name. Meanwhile, I had anonymously filed a white paper to the regulators detailing the safety defect in the current tech. Flush with victory, Julian poured money and manpower into the project. The moment he scheduled a splashy media rollout, 2 headlines detonated simultaneously: a regulatory freeze on the old tech, and Vantage's press release about its safe alternative. Sterling Group's stock cratered, trading halted at the tens of billions of his cash evaporated overnight. Julian became the punchline of every financier's joke. And I, Sienna, became a legend in one battle. Sterling Group plunged into the worst crisis of its existence. The board staged a putsch, banks called loans, partners tore up contracts. Julian's hair was visibly grayer after only a few sleepless days. The empire he had bragged about stood on the brink. Then the final straw came from home. Eleanor collapsed and was admitted to hospital when she heard the numbers. Sterling cousins circled like vultures, angling for a hostile takeover. Besieged on every side, Julian tasted true isolation. Late one night he sat alone in the ice-cold study, a tumbler clamped in his hand, while our old photos flicked across the wall. College selfies, the wedding gaze, the 4 of us cradling newborn Andrew and Haley. Each image stabbed deeper than the last. He could no longer deny it. Without Sienna he was nothing. His so-called genius, his celebrated nerve, had all been footed on roads I'd paved and shields I'd held. I was the foundation, the armor. Now the foundation was jackhammered by his own hand, the armor forged into the blade that slit his back. Regret crashed over him like tide after tide. He snatched his iPhone and, fingers trembling, typed, Sienna, I was wrong. I really was wrong. Please, come back and help me. Whatever you want, it's yours. I was reading Haley a bedtime story when the messages lit the screen. I glanced, expressionless, then deleted the thread. Now he admits it? Too late. Why on earth would I torch my own future to play servant again? Julian, are you still dreaming? When no answer came he called. I declined. He called again. I sent him to voicemail. After the 6th round I turned the phone off. Silence restored. Julian listened to the mechanical voice telling him the number was unreachable, and the last spark in his eyes died. He raged through the empty mansion like a caged animal, howling despair at the vaulted ceilings. He shattered the wine cellar, smashed the OLED screen, demolished anything his fists could reach. At last he crumpled into the rubble, sobbing like a child the world had forgotten. A high-profile charity gala became the first official appearance Julian and I shared since our divorce. As the representative of Fonrue Capital, I walked in on Landon's arm. One crimson gown, radiant and dazzling, and the moment I stepped onto the floor every eye swiveled toward us. Julian arrived alone. He had lost weight, violet shadows pooled beneath his eyes, and even the expensive cut of his suit couldn't hide the exhaustion clinging to him like smoke. Our gazes collided mid-air. His were a swirling mess of love, hate, regret, and pleading. Mine held only calm detachment. Halfway through the evening he lifted a glass and started toward me. The air around us seemed to crystallize, every guest locked on the unfolding scene. Not again, still haunting me. Planning to stage some pathetic reunion act and mine the sympathy in this room? I sneered inwardly, popcorn ready. Sienna. He stopped in front of me, voice gravelly. Can we talk? Mr. Sterling, I answered, raising my glass politely. I believe the only thing left between us is business. This isn't about business. His eyes burned. I'm begging your forgiveness. He reached for my hand. The instant his fingertips brushed my skin I jerked back, revulsion naked on my face. A small step, but absolute. As though I'd dodged something filthy. Julian's hand froze in midair. Color drained from his face, leaving it whiter than the linen tablecloths. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Everyone saw my disgust, his public slap, more lethal than any insult. I didn't spare him another glance. Turning to Landon, I smiled apologetically. Excuse me. I crossed to a quiet corner where a nervous teenager sat. Morgan, newly signed actor, my latest protégé, reminded me of the sensitive, self-doubting Julian of years ago. Morgan, relax. Come, I'll introduce you to a few directors. Flattered, he jumped up and followed. I glided him through the room, dropping names, opening doors, never once looking back. Yet I felt the scorch of Julian's stare branding my spine. He watched me laugh with Landon. He watched me nurture a boy who mirrored his younger self. He watched me shine, and knew none of that light was his anymore. Tonight, for him, was a slow public execution. Afterward I had my driver take Morgan home. Landon studied me. You really can't stand Julian, can you? I smiled. Like or dislike doesn't register, he's just Vance's ex-husband. No hatred at all? I shook my head. Hate is exhausting. I'm busy living. Hate him? He isn't worth the energy. Outside my loft, the moment I stepped from the car a shadow lunged and seized my arm. Julian, reeking of whiskey, eyes bloodshot, a cornered animal. Sienna, he rasped. Why are you doing this? Why? You're helping that kid because he reminds you of me. You still care. You're punishing me. His grip was iron, my wrist throbbed. You're drunk, let go. Never. He yanked me toward his chest. Come home, start over. I'll give you the company, everything, just you and the kids. His voice cracked, pathetically pleading. Once that tone might have softened me, now it turned my stomach. Crocodile tears, worthless. Now you value us? Where were you before? I drove my stiletto into his instep. He grunted, grip loosening, and I wrenched free. Listen carefully, Julian. Each word Vance iced chip. 1. I helped you because you were my responsibility, you no longer are. 2. I helped Morgan because he deserves it. He's clean, hardworking, grateful, not like some ungrateful bastard. 3. And this is the killer. I inhaled. I never loved you. He shuddered as if lightning struck, lips trembling, speechless. I rescued you because I parachuted into a novel and my quest was to save the tragic male lead. Quest complete, I'm free. So stop stalking me. From the start we were nothing but a transaction. I walked into the lobby without a backward glance, knowing he remained outside, a statue fracturing in the cold. All lies, of course. I loved him, nurtured a brooding boy into a dazzling man. Real love, real until he crushed it. Since we couldn't part amicably, I chose the cruelest knife to sever the last thread and consign him to limbo. At the final divorce hearing Julian offered no resistance. He agreed to every term, custody, the colossal property split. In court his gaze was a black hole. The moment the judge declared us dissolved he croaked. Sienna, one last question, was what you said downstairs true? You never loved me? A final thread of hope. I met his bloodshot eyes and I saw the fragility and pleading in his eyes, saw his white-knuckled fists, saw the last shred of dignity he was forcing himself to hold on to. For a heartbeat, something stabbed at my chest, but the pain was almost instantly iced over by cold, clinical reason. Don't soften. One moment of weakness and I'm finished. I looked at him, slowly, clearly, and let 2 syllables fall. Yes. Not the slightest hesitation, not the faintest waver. Like the sharpest blade, it sliced clean through the last thread of hope he was dangling from. The light in his eyes died, just like that. His tall frame swayed, as though every ounce of strength had been vacuumed out of him, and he collapsed into the chair. On the once invincible, flawlessly handsome face, only ashen despair remained. The hearing ended, I stood up to leave. He lunged forward, shook off the bailiff, and dropped to his knees in front of me with a sickening thud. In the hushed, stately courtroom, under every watching eye, the sterling CEO who had once stood above the world knelt like the lowliest beggar before his ex-wife. Sienna, clutching the hem of my pants, Riley streaked with tears. "Don't go, please, don't leave me. I'll give you my life, all right? Just look at me once more." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Camera flashes exploded, freezing the theatrical scene in frames of humiliation. I looked down at the man I once treasured more than breath, the man who now inspired only weary disgust. I said nothing. I simply lifted my foot, gently yet inexorably, and peeled his fingers away from the fabric, one by one. Then, without a backward glance, I walked out of the courtroom. Behind me, his cries tore through the air like a dying animal. Sunlight poured over me, warm and golden. I knew, from this moment on, I was truly, completely reborn. The story of Julian dropping to his knees for me dominated every financial and gossip site the next morning. Crazed CEO prostrates for love, dynasty meltdown final act. Every clickable headline stomped what was left of Sterling Group's reputation deeper into the mud. Sterling stock nosedived once again. The board convened Vance's emergency midnight session and stripped Julian of his title. The empire he had built, on my back, cast him out without mercy, exactly the way he once discarded me. Karma, in tailored pinstripes. When Mindy saw the news, whatever illusions she still harbored shattered. She sped to Julian's mansion, not to comfort, but to sever the last tie. "Julian, you're insane. You threw away your career and your dignity for a woman who doesn't even love you. I must have been blind to fall for you." Julian sat on the carpet, ringed by empty bottles. Ignoring her shrieks, he lifted hollow eyes and studied her face. "You imitate her, but you don't even get the lighting right. Her eyes carry galaxies, yours are just glass. Get out." Mindy shook with rage, but in the end she slunk out of the mansion she had never truly possessed. From that day on, Julian inhabited a planet of one. He locked himself inside the cavernous house, feeding on alcohol and memories. He stopped showing up at headquarters, stopped seeing anyone. A ghost haunting his own past, he guarded a gilded tomb. He replayed our old photos on Vance's endless loop, me cradling newborn Andrew and Haley, smiling with serene tenderness. He spent entire days in the children's vacant rooms, sitting in silence among toys that no longer knew small hands. He even wrapped himself in the silk robe I'd left behind, lying in the indent my body once pressed into the mattress, greedily scenting the ghost of perfume long gone. With every masochistic ritual he reminded himself exactly what he had lost. Occasionally news of me leaked into his isolation. Sienna leading Vantage Capital to swallow the prime projects that once bore sterling crests. Sienna launching a personal foundation bankrolling more dream chasers like Morgan. Sienna ferrying Andrew and Haley across 7 continents, their smiles blooming against every postcard backdrop. Each headline, each photograph, twisted the blade deeper. At last he understood. I was never his light. I was light itself. And he, with his own hands, had switched it off. Now the beam cut across the world, but never again illuminated him. 3 years later, at Vantage Capital's gala, I took the stage as the newly crowned CEO. Below, hundreds of pairs of eyes glowed with admiration and something close to reverence. Landon stood in the front row, applauding with quiet pride. Morgan, now reigning box office king, had just dedicated his first Oscar to me. My parents occupied the family section, faces luminous with pride. Andrew and Haley flanked them in miniature tuxedos, cheering like 2 tiny cheering squad captains. Career ascendant, family whole, friends true. Exactly the life I had sketched in the margins of my old pain. After the gala I led the kids toward the garage. Beneath the sodium lights, a figure waited, familiar yet time-worn. Julian. He leaned against Vance's ordinary sedan, hair salted premature gray, stubble graying too, a faded trench coat hanging loose on shoulders that once filled custom suits. He looked a decade older than his age. When he spotted me, he straightened with awkward urgency, clutching a cake box. "Sienna." His voice was gravel dragged over riverbed. "Today is Andrew and Haley's birthday." For a beat I blinked, then remembered it really was. Years of conquering markets had overwritten calendars in my head. Andrew and Haley shrank behind me, wary of the stranger. "Who are you?" Andrew's small brows knit. Julian quivered as though the single question amputated something inside him. Of course, they'd grown past the age when a face in a photograph feels real. He opened his mouth, found no label that would fit. I exhaled, crouched to eye level with the twins. Sweethearts, this is Mr. Sterling. The word Dad never left my lips. Julian's smile was pure bitterness as he extended the cake. Happy birthday, I didn't take it. Thanks for the thought, but we already ordered ours. Hand in hand with my children, I walked past him. Goodbye, Mr. Sterling. Sienna, I paused, back still turned. If a time machine could take us back, would you choose me again? The plea fluttered, paper thin. I let a quiet moment pass. Then, eyes on the neon skyline, I smiled, free, unburdened. Julian, people move forward, me included. I didn't stop again. Side view mirror, his silhouette stretched thin and lonelier under yellow sodium, until distance erased him entirely. My story had already turned the page. His would stay stuck in that winter of regret. A solitary man, breathing what-ifs in Vance's empty mansion, for the rest of his numbered days. Thanks for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this tale? If it moved you, give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more stories that sting and soar. See you next time.